Hello everybody in the world of YouTube and other 360 and first-person shooting loving gamers, whether you be on PS3 or computer. Today I was looking extremely forward to getting my hands on a title that holds license to a movie series that I've loved since, well, forever. Being Aliens. And, you know, everybody I would think that'll be watching this, hopefully, is probably a fan themselves, and if not a fan, well, then they like shooting and blowing things up gratuitously. Unfortunately, before I was able to get my copy of the game today, numerous of my friends decided to point out the fact of how badly this game ended up being, especially by the fact of how many magazines and rating people and everything like that just started cracking down on it as soon as they got their hands on it. A couple of the ones that I thought were most notable once I finally got home from work and popped online to start reading some of these was I went to Joystick to see what they had to say about it, and they quoted a handful of people all the way from what was a 90 out of 100, which I'm assuming whoever it was that played the game had to have been on some sort of high quality drug, because there's no way that it could have been that good, all the way down to a 30 out of 100, which, without me technically playing it, and I know that many of you that might watch this will go, how can you judge a game so harshly if you haven't even set your hands on it? Well, rats flee from drowning from ships that are sinking in the ocean and don't look around to each other to find out how bad it is. And unfortunately, as much as I hate to jump on that kind of a bandwagon, I don't want to waste $65 to find out that the game is crap. And unfortunately, everybody thinks it is, so I'm going to have to go on board with that. But I'd like to point out a couple of these quotes because after I read them, I thought them to be quite humorous. So please, sit with me for a moment as I go ahead and quote a few of these for you. EGM gave this thing a 90 out of 100, and they quoted, "on an express elevator to otherworldly awesomeness." I can't agree with that. From what I've seen, from the computer stuff and the early things, the game looked phenomenal. But from the stuff that I was looking at today that was 360 stuff and PS3, the game looks bad. Looks extremely rough considering the fact of where we are going into the possibility of all these next-gen consoles coming out here maybe this year and possibly next year. OXM UK gave this a 60 out of 100, which I feel is probably a little bit more friendly too, like the 90, and says, "it needed to offer intense combat against an unstoppable force, deft storytelling that matched the cinematic flair of the films, and some new ideas that could have rejuvenated an overexposed franchise. It needed, in short, to be a better game. If anybody has watched any of the other movies, such as Aliens 3, Aliens, the fourth one, Rejuvenation or Resurrection, or whatever that crap was called, and then any of the Alien vs. Predator movies, everybody holds their breath hoping that it's going to be fantastic, and then you go and spend a couple of bucks to go watch it in theaters and find out that it's just god-awful, like this game. Luckily, $11 is a lot easier to stomach than $65. Edge quoted it with a 50 out of 100, quoting, "Colonial Marines feel stiff, shallow, and dated. First announced for a 2008 release before the Aliens franchise machine prioritized other projects, Alien vs. Predator, it feels like more work has been retained from the initial product period than either Gearbox or Sega would care to admit." Me and my friend got into a debate about this earlier, talking about it, and maybe these guys jumped on the bandwagon after somebody else already had scrapped it. A game being in production for that long tends to end up with a lot more problems because nobody wants to fix what's already there. Or in these situations, like with Fox being attached to it, maybe they wanted this game to come out even with it being this bad because they hope to get some kind of return. Game Informer, down here in the better numbers that I'm feeling are more appropriate, quote, "take away the Aliens license and you've got a shooter that has no reason to exist. It would be like stripping the terraforming from Fracture or playing Inversion without the gravity-defying gimmick at its best. It's a barely mediocre." Makes perfectly good sense to me because, well, those games were okay, and if you did take away that gimmick, they would be no different than any other shooter or third-person shooter that was on the market. Nothing extremely exciting, no real reason to play it, but the cool little gimmick made it exciting. In this case, the fact that it's called Aliens made it really neat. And then Eurogamer, who I thought hit the note the best with a 30 out of 100, quotes, "it's shocking stuff. currently one of the most glitchy mainstream releases of this hardware generation, and the sort of thing that would barely pass muster as a low-budget game in the year of 2002. Mind you, that was PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox we're dealing with, which did muster some really good first-person shooters considering the fact of where we've come from then to now, with Halo, Timesplitters 2, just to name a few of them. Of course, the GameCube didn't really have too many good things on it because that controller was god-awful and you were probably better off throwing it out of a window or possibly letting your dog chew on it. It just really saddens me that there could be a series that fantastic that nobody is really going to put any effort into. If you don't want to do the work, Gearbox, or Sega in this case, don't even put your name attached to it. Do like some directors do with movies and TV shows, and they use a pseudonym instead, so nobody knows that in case it's a crappy movie or a crappy TV show, then at least you can't be credited with making it. And if it ends up being fantastic, well, then a bunch of people that keep using that pseudonym will end up with the same thing, clustered into a pack of people that tend to make a really good thing or a really bad thing. Well, I'm done ranting to you guys. Enjoy, hate, whatever. That's what YouTube is made for. I know I'll probably go and find a couple of videos myself and keep my hate, well, to myself since I don't post on them. But that's all I got to say on the topic. If you watch it, hopefully you haven't bought the game already. And if you have bought the game, hopefully you find some of enjoyment in it to at least make it worth the money for you.